What's going on, guys? Big video today. It's gonna be my 2023 updated top 20 coasters I've ridden. And if you see last year's list and this one side by side, they're gonna look very different. And yeah, really big change out of most recent trip, which is not that I didn't expect. But yeah, my head was like about to explode making this list yesterday. But in one piece, and we're gonna do it. So let's start with my honorable mentions. Honorable mentions are Steel Force at Dorney, Talon at Dorney, Magnum XL Tundra at Cedar Point, Hate Me All You Want, Wild Eagle at Dollywood, Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, Stormrunner at Hershey, Copperhead Strike at Carowinds, Thunderbolt at Kennywood, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland, Paul's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and Miss Timbers. All excellent coasters. Just didn't make my top 20. They being a top 30, but top 20 not quite. We're starting number 20. Number 20 is Griffin from Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Now, I remember it's being my favorite coaster when I rode it back in 2014. And this still held up very well. I'd still say it's the smoothest coaster I've ever been on. I've only been on 2 dive coasters, this and Valraven, and this kicks its ass. No doubt about it. With those restraints as opposed to the being restraints, which are absolutely horrible, you can actually get some airtime on the drop. And it feels yeah, the drop definitely feels a lot better with these, with the old B&M restraints. Smooth, and it's intense too. I was graying out on some of those inversions, even gray on the drop a little bit. Yeah, it's very marathonable, and I think it's easily my favorite B&M at that park. Apollo's Chariot, I think, gets way too much hate. I think it's great. Alpengeist, I think, is on the overrated side. I kind of got a headache from that, actually, but yeah, Griffin, I think, is the best B&M Virginia by far. And yeah, having over Leviathan, surprisingly. But yeah, people generally say that Griffin's one of the best dive coasters, and it's definitely the superior of the two that I've ridden by far. We're 19. Okay, now I have this significantly lower than most people, but then again, it has been 6 years since I've ridden this, so could my opinion change when I go back? Has potential. Number 19 is Skyrush at Hershey. Now, this I remember being intense, but I remember barely being able to get any airtime because those restraints. Like, those restraints are bad. Whoever designed those restraints should never be allowed to design coaster restraints again. Like, those are much worse than the Superman the Ride restraints, I feel, but it's a very intense ride. Great burst drop, but in terms of I think I would have enjoyed it more had, different restraints I had gotten more airtime. Not that I didn't get any, but the, being really pinned down in my seat did definitely, drastically limit it. Yeah, but then again, been 6 years since I rode it. Could it shoot up my rankings when I get on it again? Potentially. I don't think I'm getting to Hershey this year, but I'm hoping next year that'll change. Kind of depending on what other trips come up. I was actually gonna try and plan a visit this year for Wildcats Revenge, but then we end up playing this trip and I had to consume my money. So I'm gonna save up my money. So yeah, doesn't mean Skyrush isn't great. I just don't have it ranked as highly as most enthusiasts, and this in only 19 is a really big hot take. Rating. Number 18, we got a tie. Now, there's only going to be 2 ties in the whole list, I promise. Number 18 is a tie between Tennessee Tornado at Dollywood and Beast at Kings Island. Now, I would really, even though these two are like, nothing alike, I really love them both for the same reasons for the most part, so that was why I decided to make them a tie. Tennessee Tornado, I think, is the best arrow I've been on. This thing has no reason to be as intense as it is. I was graying out a lot of those inversions. It's not even painfully rough by any means, because a lot of the air loopers I've ridden tend to be a mixed bag. Corkscrew at Cedar Point is okay. Loch Ness Monster was pretty good. This one was the best of those by far. Let me think the other one. Oh yeah, Carolina Cycle kind of beat the shit out of me. Yeah, I did not like that, but Tennessee Tornado. Oh, I think this is designed by an RMC designer, Alan Schilke. I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that. So yeah, maybe that could be why it's as smooth as it is, but yeah. I was a little bummed I only got one ride on this my last visit, but yeah. definitely as good as I remember, maybe better. I remember rolling those in 2018 and 2023 when I returned, no different. Now, Beast at Kings Island. Now, I pretty much love this for just how intense it is, and this provides for those of you that basically living on a rock, this provides insane night rides. I did get the luxury of doing a night ride back in when I went last year, and that was probably one of the craziest nights I've had at any park. And yeah, those laterals, I mean, they were hitting pretty good during the day, but those just hit different at night. And yeah, if I was ranking this just based on night rides, this would be in the top three without a doubt. But just this is just in general, as a coaster. But yeah, I had really high expectations for this one, and they were definitely exceeded. So yeah, I know kind of weird having those at the time, but really I love those both for similar reasons. I couldn't really decide which was better. So yeah, number 17. Number 17 now. This Thunderhead Dollywood. Now, I had heard that this was running as the best it ever has this year, and I can confirm that is in fact true. And I, only rode it once in 2018. When I rode it in 2018, I remember thinking it was nothing special. But then this year when I rode it, whoa, that thing felt fast, intense, smooth, and those laterals were really hitting hard on this. Yeah, I think the best GCI I've been on, I think it blows Miss Timbers out of the water. Like, I don't think it's even close. Yeah, like, if you told me, like, just last year that I was going to find this in my top 20, I would have thought you were crazy. But, yeah. Definitely the best GCI I've been on, and, second best coaster to Dollywood, yeah, I missed this ride already. But, yeah, Thunderhead absolutely blew me away. Number 16. For me, at number 16, we got Raptor at Cedar Point. Now, this went from the best being invert I've been on to the second best, but that doesn't mean it's not great. I only got one ride on, which was a shame. I was really looking forward to getting another ride on day 2, but then stormy weather kind of didn't allow it to happen. But yeah, I got one ride in the very back, and this is one of the most intense, whippy B&Ms I've ever been on. All the inversions hit pretty hard on this, especially that Cobra roll. I was graying out quite a bit. That was no freaking joke when I rode it. And yeah, I mean, Batman Great Adventure is intense, it's whippy also, but it's on the rough side. This, in the very back, I didn't feel was rough at all. Maybe it would have been different in a different row, possibly, but yeah, definitely the best B&M at Cedar Point, and yeah. So, finish it for that one. Number 15. Just barely ahead of it. And this was such a hard decision. It's Afterburn at Carowinds. Now, this I think is the best invert I've been on. Like pretty much intensity wise, it's pretty much about like intensity whippy wise, it's very similar to Raptor, maybe a little bit more, but that Batwing element destroys Raptor's Cobra roll. Like I think like of all the B&Ms I've been on, that like I think the Batwing on this is probably the best inversion on any invert I've been on. Like that was seriously just lethal when I rode it. It does have a rattle, which does make it pretty hard to marathon, unfortunately. But I got 3 rides, and yeah, the park was dead that day. It was like a station way all day. I think part of it could be because Fury's closed, which was a big blow. But yeah, Afterburn did not let me down. Definitely best me invert I've been on. All like I said, this and Raptor are very close. So yeah, number 14. Number 14 is one that shot up in my rankings this year. Kingda Ka Six Flags Great Adventure. Now, just last year, I think it was just barely in my top 20, but this year it's all the way at 14 because, I mean, this year it's running the smoothest it ever has, and this year it's like whipping you over that top hat this year, at least every time I've experienced it. And yeah, I was able to do a 12 ride marathon back in May with no headache, which I definitely couldn't say last year. But yeah, it's a short ride. Strengths do kind of suck. It probably would be better if I had lap bars, but it is a rush. You shoot down there so fast, and especially like in the like, and this thing in the front really hits hard every time, especially at night. And yeah, it's a one trick pony, but a really good one at that. And yeah, I definitely think Kingdom Cards definitely grew on me. I think part of that could be because I've been able to get so many rides on it this year. I think I only gone 4 times. The first time that day was the first time, which was packed to ship. By the way, I got 4 rides, got really good ride ops. Second visit 12, and the most recent visit 14. But yeah, Kingdom Cards definitely grown on me. It's a lot smoother than it was, a lot more marathonable, and still as intense as ever. So yeah, number 13. Number 13 is a tie between two B&M Hypers at two Cedar Fair parks. Now, I had a really hard time choosing which of these were better, so I ended up just doing a tie for both of them. Intimidator, Carowinds, and Diamondback. And no, I'm not one of those that call it Intimidator. The trims barely even, I was barely able to feel them. On this, well, I mean, they slowed it down a little bit, but it didn't prevent me from getting airtime or anything like that. It definitely didn't ruin the ride. But yeah, both of these provided some really, really great floater. But Diamondback had a rattle, I felt. I kind of felt the way about all the B&Ms at Kings Island. But Intimidator, smooth as silk, really strong floater. And yeah, really both of these, I usually prefer a Jetter over floater. And yeah, these are very floater focused, but both these do it really well. And yeah, really don't know which to choose of the two, but yeah, that's why they are a tie. Number 12. Number 12, just barely ahead of that, is the best being a hyper I've been on is Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. I think this destroys Leviathan. So, yeah, I think I mostly like this more than Behemoth and Intimidator because to me this felt more ejector based, which I prefer. And the Helix on this destroys Nitro's Helix, like, and not even close. Yeah, Nitro is not. Nitro is definitely fallen off my rankings a lot. Like, I don't even know if it's in my top 30 anymore. It's probably not, as a matter of fact. But yeah, this I definitely felt. I maintained its speed a little better than Intimidator and Diamondback, and yeah, like I said, prefer Ejector, and this is definitely more focused on that. I haven't ridden this in 7 years, so I'm trying to, just do my best in terms of like the description of all that. But I only got one ride on it too because I was a family, so that was, kind of another thing to consider. But yeah, I think I do have this ahead of a tuner Diamondback barely, and definitely have it the best me in my been on for now. Although I've yet to try Goliath over Georgia. Hopefully that'll change next year. But we'll have to see. Number 11. Coming at number 11 is Orion at Kings Island. Now, this I definitely feel, of the, being of the gigas in the U.S. I've been on, this is definitely the weakest. And my only real gripes with the ride are it's way too short and it's very rattling. Or depending on like where you sit, like if you're sitting in the edge seat, you're gonna get rattled a lot on this. At least that was how it was for me. But tains its speed very well. Great first drop. Got some great night rides on this, and it has intense moments, but I still wouldn't call it like a blackout intense ride. But I don't think B&M is really has really made a lot of those anyway. But yeah, definitely prefer this over Leviathan, but not Millie, and definitely not a 305. Yeah, I remember my first ride on this. I rode it right after opening. I ran as slow as a snail, and I was incredibly underwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie. And like at that point, I wasn't even sure if it was in my top 15. But yeah, I rode it again. I think it was like a little more than 5 hours later. closer to 7 hours later, actually, and it was a lot better. But yeah, I think just missing my top 10. Number 10. Number 10, now this is one of the most tricky ones in the whole list, I feel. Number 10 is Lightning Rod Dollywood. Now, I had this number 4 when I wrote it, but then I rewrote Toro, and then, I considered the gripes I had with it a little bit more, and I also considered the fact that I only wrote the weaker version of it, supposedly, and so that's why it is where it is now. But, yeah, I was really pumped to ride this, and it didn't disappoint mainly because I purposely kept my stations lower for the morning ride, because I knew run slower in the morning, and it definitely did. But Ejector was a lot more lethal in this than I was expecting. The quad down in the front really hit hard. Even the launch felt pretty powerful to me. But my only real and the scenery riding in the mountain is really beautiful too. My only gripes with this personally are it is very rough for an RMC, and it's too short. Like, I previously had this ahead of Wicked Cyclone and Twisted Timbers, not anymore, because those two feel like a lot more of complete rides than this. And yeah, no inversions on RMC to kind of feel weird, but yeah. Number 9. Number 9, just barely ahead of that, is Wicked Cyclone. Now, this is one I haven't ridden in 6 years, but gonna do my best here. I remember thinking this was substantial. I remember there being some pretty violent jet moments on this for an RMC, violent inversions, especially the 200 stall on this was crazy. And I believe I got a total of 3 rides, I want to say. Yeah, it sounds right. And yeah, New England is a park that New England, along with Hershey, are like top of my list of parks I need to get back to. And yeah, I really didn't think Wicked Cycle was gonna stay the size this long, but it did. Really, really my description now is no different than it was last year because I haven't ridden it in over 6 years. Yeah, number 8. Number 8, we got Millennium Force Cedar Point. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that this top 10 would look dramatically different had I gotten Red Maverick, but that unfortunately didn't happen. It was closed because of some mechanical issue, I think, both days I was there. And supposedly, the day I was at Kings Island, it was closed too. So, yeah, that's not unfortunate. Otherwise, Maverick would be in my top 5 easily. But, yeah, I did get a total of 3 rides on Millennium Force, however, and, yeah. Night Ride was definitely crazy. I did not get pelted with bugs, surprisingly, but pulled some great laterals, especially on the Night Ride. Some solid airtime moments on your 2. Maintains its speed very well. And, yeah, pretty much everything I love in a coaster, just has it. And, yeah, and I mean, even my ride in row 6 or 7, I believe, I was somewhere in the middle for, like, my last ride on this. Didn't expect it to be that great, but it blew me away. And, yeah, I would definitely not call this Millennium Force this, unlike most people. But I would say that it's not necessarily my top 5, obviously, but yeah. I think part of what's making me appreciate this more is the fact that I didn't get to ride Maverick. But yeah, Millennium Force definitely, definitely solid. Number 7. Number 7, now this could be the most controversial one on the whole list, and I know many people that would have this like not even in their top 30 because of the restraints or whatever. But Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. Now this I remember being more intense than Millennium Force, which is why I think I like it a little bit better. I think the Spaghetti Bowl section, lots of gray out. That was probably my favorite on this ride when I rode it. The first 2 camelbacks, the restraints didn't bother me. I got whipped down my seat on those. And yeah, it's one of those coasters that I only rode think I rode a total of 4 times, I think, that day. Back in 2017. It's one of the few coasters I've ridden since then that I remember vividly. Never got a night ride, which was a real shame, but hoping next year I can plan a return trip to New England so that we can make that happen. So, yeah, I would definitely have this miles ahead of Million. Definitely, I'd say second best hyper I've been on. Kicks Nitro's ass for sure. Number 6. Number 6 is Twisted Timbers. Now, this and Superman can definitely be flip flopped when I get back on Superman, hopefully next year. But yeah, incredibly violent ejector modes for a small RMC, and that like twisted drop, I didn't know what I was gonna think of that, but that was pretty powerful actually, and I was out of my seat quite a bit. And yeah, really strong airtime, really strong inversions on this, and the night rides I got were absolutely nuts. And yeah, this is one the my expectations. I mean, I was excited about it and all, but like still was a smaller RMC. I didn't raise my expectations too high, but yeah, this blew me away. This is like a minute. This literally is a mini Seal Vengeance. I mean, I had heard that from other enthusiasts. I wasn't sure if it was actually gonna be at first, but yeah, this Vengeance definitely felt similar. Definitely some more violent ejector, and yeah, I believe I got a total of 4 rides that day on this. But yeah, Twist Timbers is definitely not one to pass up when you're in the area. Number 5. Number 5. Now this I want to say number 2 on my list last year. Phantom's Revenge of Kennywood. Now this definitely has some really violent airtime, and like there was low key like some parts of this driver didn't even feel safe. That first drop, I mean, I wasn't sure what I was gonna think of. Like kind of like the kind of weird drop. I mean, this coaster's kind of weird in that the second drop is much better than the first drop, but that second drop really is powerful. Like yeah, I think on any steel coaster, this is definitely like right up there in some of the most violent airtime I've ever experienced. Very smooth too, and restraint's pretty comfortable in this actually. The only part that was kind of sucky was the one train ups, and again, that's just Kennywood in general. But yeah, for a while I had this ahead of El Toro, but my rides this year did kind of change that. Number 4, speaking of which, number 4, El Toro was Six Flags Great Adventure. Now this was I believe I had this number 7, just the day before I rode it again. I rode it again this year, and here we are, skyrocketed to 4. And yeah, this I think definitely has the best first drop ever experienced. And my main gripes of it last year were just so rough, especially towards the end. But this year, ever since last year's incident, they what felt like fixed it entirely. Because even like the end portion still felt a little jarring, but definitely not as rough as it was. And I mean, when you're on a non-wheel seat, you don't even feel it. But yeah, they fixed that, which was the only nasty part of the ride in the past. But first drop still as violent as ever. Jet time, even on the first 2 camelbacks, still as violent as ever. Super intense, and yeah, this is one that runs probably over 100 times by now. Definitely have a soft spot for it, and it's definitely I think this year is definitely running substantially better than last year. The best coaster at that park by far, and yeah. Okay. Number 3. Now this was my number 1 last year, and I'm kind of shocked that I myself am kind of shocked that this is not my number 1 still. Number 3, Steel Bend is at 0 point. I had this head of El Toro mostly. I feel like it maintains its speed a lot better than El Toro, and it's longer, which are mainly why I have it ahead of it. But like Like, this is one of those, like, I was getting insane airtime even on, like, the little thing before the lift hill. That's crazy. But, yeah, every single route I got on this, I got a total of 3 altogether. Every single route was absolutely violent, and even, and, like, the last route I got, which was Trimless right after the storm, it flew through that make-course break runs. It wasn't even there. Did not lose the speed one bit. It was hauling like a jet the entire time. Uh, like, the whole time, I was just like, what is going on? I was even getting, and like some of the hang time I got on like the stall and all that, it's freaking mental. And yeah, definitely, I could see this staying in my top 5 for a good long time. I still have the right Quasi, hoping that'll happen in the next couple of years, but yeah, still Venice. I mean, this was my number 1 at one point for a reason. Absolutely incredible, and honestly, I do not blame anyone who does still have this as their number 1. Just a flawless ride, I'm always the 1. Number 2. Now, this now deciding if this is or Venice was better was really hard. But I got a total of 8 rides on this, and I was able to come to a conclusion. Number 2, Pantheon at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. The best launch coaster I've ever been on. Launch wise, I wouldn't say the launch is as intense as Cause, but then again, very few launches are. But grading on that launch and the airtime in the backwards launch, what I knew was gonna be crazy based on what other people have said, but holy shit. Like, that was even crazier than I was expecting. I was even getting whipped over the top hat, whipped through those inversions. It's an absolutely exhilarating ride in more ways than one. Definitely one of the most intense coasters I've ever been on. And yeah, and like I said, I mean, my number 2 and number 1 are super interchangeable, and I honestly would not blame anyone for having those in opposite order. Yeah, this I was debating if it was actually number 1 at one point, but it just missed it. But yeah, Pantheon is absolutely lethal, and definitely the best coaster of that park by a long shot. Not even close. Number 1. And my number 1, this is no surprise if you know me, it's a Team of Rio 5 Kings Dominion. What do I have to say here? It blows my mind that this freaking ride even exists. This has everything I love in a coaster. It has probably one of the best first drops I've ever experienced. I got some really strong ejector on this, actually, considering those restraints. But the gray out and the intensity on this is what I absolutely love. Like, those transitions, I felt like I was on another planet for half the time. Like, this thing literally feels like it tries to kill you. I mean, I actually felt drained after my night ride marathon. And no other coaster has ever done that to me. Like, by far the most intense coaster I've ever been on. And yeah, I think definitely front is better on this than the back. But like, I remember my friend who was with me on my night ride actually said he got like tunnel vision from it. I could see that. I totally can. This thing is intense as crap. And that is an understatement. Now, this is one of those that, like, I mean, that front row night ride, that's gonna be something I remember for a long time. Like, I can see this being in my top 5 even after I've lost Coaster and Quasi. It's that good. And honestly, I mean, how this ride even gets approved to run by the state is beyond me. Yeah. At 305 is nuts. That is an understatement. Yeah, that's pretty much. Hope you guys enjoyed my updated top 20. I know my description for some of these could have been better, but like, for some of these, I kind of had similar things to say about one as opposed to the other. Or no, similar things to say about one and then similar things about another right after. And, my memory of the ones I've run in 2016, 2017 aren't that good. So, yeah. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. And, peace out.